Okay, this is the assignment for day number 1 in Programming 2. And we've got a shell program here we're going to make into a Pong, two-player Pong game. And I left out one declaration, so we do need a splash texture. I didn't put the word texture on these, but I think maybe I will. And if you click on this here, it will let you rename that. And so any occurrences that are already down there, further down in the program, will be changed. And now I want to do the same thing here. And let's do ball. And ball texture and splash. And there's no renaming that needs to take place here because I just put it in right now, so it's not occurring down below. Okay. Comments are in here to kind of guide you through it. And I want to make the ball 2% of the width of the screen on both sides. So that's my ball rectangle dot width equals screen dot width times 2 divided by 100 for 2%. And the ball rectangle dot height is going to be the same thing. Okay, so that'll give me a round ball, it won't be distorted. Then I want to position the ball in the middle of the screen, so that's going to be the X and the Y. And I want to move in, this is all going to be relative to my screen rectangle up here. So if I change the size of the screen, everything else in my program should change as well. So screen dot left plus half of the width of the screen. And then I want to subtract the ball rectangle width divided by 2, okay, to get it precisely in the center. And ball rectangle dot Y is going to be, go to the top of the screen and do half of the screen height, and then subtract the ball rectangle dot height divided by 2. Okay. And then I want the ball speed to be 1/120th of the screen width. So ball, usually use a vector for that, dot x equals the width of the screen times 120th, so I'm just going to divide by 120. Okay, and that's integer division, so I'll get an integer for result. And ball speed dot y equals same thing. Okay, and then I want to set paddle 1. Okay, so paddle 1 rectangle dot x is going to be 0. I'm sorry, it's not going to be 0, it's going to be screen dot left. And paddle 1 rectangle dot y is going to be, you know what, I can't do that yet. I need to do the width and the height first. Got to make the size. So paddle 1 rectangle dot width is going to be, now 2.5% would be 2.5 divided by 100, but I don't want to introduce any floating point numbers in here, so I'm going to instead multiply by 25 and then divide by 1,000 screen width. That's another way to take 2% without introducing any floating point numbers in there. And paddle 1 rectangle dot height is going to be screen dot height times 15 divided by 100. Okay. And now I can do what the y coordinate's going to be. The y coordinate's going to be, I want to go to the top of the screen plus half the height of the screen divided by 2, and that'll get me the middle. And then I want to go up half the height of the paddle. So I want to subtract paddle 1 rectangle dot height divided by 2. Okay. Okay, and then paddle 2 is going to be, let me see, paddle 2 rectangle dot width is going to be equal to paddle 1 dot width, and paddle to rectangle dot height. They're going to be the same size, so width and height will be the same. It's going to be paddle whoops, DLE1 rectangle, and then paddle to, let's see, rectangle dot X is going to be, I want to go to the right edge of the screen, which is going to be screen dot right minus the width of the paddle. So paddle to rectangle dot width. Okay, and then the y coordinates actually going to be the same as I could have done that up here when I was copying other values over. Paddle to rectangle dot y equals paddle 1. Darn it. Dot y. Okay. And you know what? Just to see if I'm getting stuff in the right spot here, I'm going to already go down here and I got my begin and end for sprite batch down here, but I'm going to do sprite batch draw, and I'm going to draw the ball texture, the ball rectangle, and the ball color. We're going to do white for everything. Okay, let's run that, see if we get a ball in the middle of the screen. And we're not going to because I forgot to load it. I set all the parameters for drawing it. I did the draw command, but I don't have anything to draw, so we're going to get an error message here. At least I think we're going to get an error message here. And there it is. Okay, there's no can accept null for this parameter. Okay, parameter name is texture. And if you just pause your mouse over it, there's the value for white, there's the value for the rectangle, and you pause your mouse over this and it says it's null, which means we forgot to initialize it. Okay, so let's stop the program. Let's go back up to load content, and this is where ball rectangle, not rectangle, texture, and it's going to be texture 2D, and we called it ball. And we do the same thing with the paddles. Paddle 1 texture equals content dot load texture 2D, and this is going to be, I just called it paddle, and I'm going to do the exact same thing here for, whoops, got an extra blank line in there, but the only thing I need to change here is make that paddle 2. Okay, now let's try to run it, see if I get a ball in the middle of the screen. And there it is. Okay, now let's see if we can get our paddles over on the right side, and the only thing I need to do down here is go down and draw the paddles. Draw paddle 1 texture, comma, paddle 1 rectangle, make it white for now. Okay, now it's okay. Yeah, now we're good. Let's give it a try. paddles should be centered vertically on the screen, and they are. Okay. And if we wanted to color them, we go back here and we could do some coloring. I'm going to try one thing though. I'm going to try changing. I'm going to copy that and paste it. And then we're just going to set some new values here that override. And we'll do 600. And we'll have 100 pixels on each side, and we'll do 380 here, so we got 50 pixels on each side, and screen.x is going to be in 100, and screen.y is going to be in 50. So we should have a rectangle centered in the middle of the screen with a border of 50 pixels top and bottom, and a border of 100 pixels on each side. And if I wrote this right, then I made everything relative to the screen, and I did. The only problem is you can't really see where the screen is, and so that's probably something we need to fix as well. Okay, and then we need paddle speed. So paddle speed is a vector dot, and the x in that is going to be 0 because we can't move the paddles left and right, but I kind of like the idea of using vectors all the time whenever I want to indicate a speed. So paddle speed dot y equals, and it says the height of the screen in 1 second. So basically we're doing it 60 times a second, so if I divide the height of the screen by 60, that's I'll move 1/60th per second, and I'll move 60 the entire thing in 60 ticks, or 1 second. So this is going to be screen dot height divided by 60. Okay. I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and before we draw anything else, I'm going to draw let me see, I can use the paddle again. Texture. And I'm going to use a screen rectangle. That's one of the few I don't put the word rectangle on the end. And then we'll do a color dot black. Okay. And now if we run it, we should at least be able to see that. Maybe not. Paddle texture, it is supposed to be paddle 1. Now let's run it. Okay. And it is putting everything correctly in relation to my screen rectangle, so that's good. Okay, now let's go back, and because I've already thought about what I want to do in all these locations here, basically all we need to do is look at the comments and we'll know what code we need to implement. So I want to read gamepad 1 and move paddle 1 if necessary. So pad 1 equals gamepad dot get state Let's try that again. Didn't like that. Let's dot get state, and what I want is player index 1, and so if they can move the paddle up or down, so, and we use the left thumbstick. So if pad1 dot thumbsticks dot left dot y is greater than 0, that means they pushed it up. And so what I want to do is, that means I'm actually going to subtract from my y coordinate on my paddle. So paddle 1 rectangle dot y minus equals paddle speed dot y. Okay, And if pad1 dot thumbsticks dot left dot y is less than 0, then paddle1 rectangle dot y plus equals paddle speed okay. And I'm thinking the reason we have a problem here is because rectangles use integer coordinates, vectors use floating point coordinates. We have a type mismatch here, so I need to put int in front of that to convert the floating point number into an int. And okay, now I think I'm good. So I'll check to see if they pushed up. If they did, I will change the y coordinate to move it up. If they push down, I'll change the y coordinate to push it down. Okay. So now I have the new coordinates. But if those coordinates are off the screen, then I need to bring the paddle back. I'll never let it go off the screen. So how do I know if it went off the screen? Well, if paddle1 rectangle, what happened to that? Paddle1 rectangle dot top is less than screen dot top, then I want to bring it back. So paddle1 rectangle, and I can't change top, so I've got to use y. Top and y are synonyms, but top, you're not allowed to assign a value to top for some reason. You can only assign it to y. So paddle rectangle dot y is going to be equal to screen dot top. Okay. And then down here you check see if it went off the bottom. And if paddle1 rectangle dot bottom is greater than screen dot bottom, then I went too far. And so what I need to do is I need to move its y coordinate back so that the whole thing is remaining on the screen. Paddle1 rectangle dot y equals screen dot bottom minus paddle1 rectangle dot height. Okay. And now let's try to run that, and this time I'm going to need my gamepad. And I think it's ready to go now, and okay, nothing's happening. So why is nothing happening? Let's go back. So I'm updating paddle1. So I read the gamepad. Oh, you know what? Am I calling it from down here? I'm only doing it if I'm in a particular state. So for right now, let's comment these two lines. Let's comment everything out here, and then let's bring this back in, and let's bring these two lines back in, and now let's run it and see what happens. Okay, pushing up and bumps into the top, pushing down, it bumps into the bottom, and it looks like that's working. Okay. And if that's working, then it's going to be pretty easy to get paddle2 to work. The code is almost identical. The logic is identical. And so I'm going to read gamepad 2 here and move paddle2 if necessary. And pad 2. Now, if I had two players here, I'd change this to a 2, but I've only got one. So I'm going to read in from gamepad number 1. So both of the paddles should move in sync. But the only thing I would have to change then is change this to a 2 once I get another player. And I have two controllers connected. So now this is going to be a 2. That we're positioning paddle2. Paddle speed doesn't have a 1 or a 2 in it because it's the same for both, so we only need one variable. And paddle1 should be changed to paddle 2 here, and it should be changed to a 2 here, and it should be changed to 2 here, and see if it goes off the bottom. We want paddle 2, and over here 2. Okay, so if I run this now, I should get both paddles moving at the same time in response to my left thumb pad. Both of them should stay on the screen all the time. And let's check it out here in a minute. Okay, pushing up, and they won't go any further. Pushing down, and they won't go any further. So that's looking good. Now let's go back to our program, and let's take a look at how you move the ball. Okay, to move the ball, you've got to change the coordinates of its rectangle. So ball rectangle dot x plus equals ball speed dot x. And I think we have a type mismatch error there as well. And ball rectangle dot y equals ball speed dot y, and I left the plus sign out, plus equals. Okay, and on both of these, because we've got a float on the right side, we need to convert it into an int, so we just put int in parentheses out here. Okay, and don't forget our semicolon on the end. Okay, and now let's run the program, and I think we're moving the ball. We're calling update, and down here we are drawing the ball. You know, right after we draw the screen, we're drawing the ball. So now let's run it and see. And it looks like it's moving. We're just not bouncing it off of anything here. So let's go back and let's make the ball bounce a little bit. So did the ball go off the top? If so, bring it back and reverse its y direction. Well, how do you see if it went off the top? You see if it went off the top by checking to see if ball rectangles dot, actually let's do top, is less than screen dot top, then it's just moved off the top. And what I need to do is I need to do two things here. So we need curly brackets. And first thing I want to do is bring it back. So ball rectangle dot y equals screen dot top. So I make sure it never goes off the top. And then what I want to do is I want to reverse the y direction of the ball, which means ball speed dot y equals minus ball speed dot y. Okay. And we need to do the same thing, see if it bounces off the bottom. If ball rectangle dot y, now let's do bottom again. If bottom is greater than screen dot bottom, then we got a problem. It's gone too far. And we want to do two things here. We want to do ball rectangle dot y, we want to bring it back, is going to be equal to screen dot bottom minus ball rectangle dot height. Okay, and then we want to reverse the y direction. So ball speed dot y equals minus ball speed dot y. Okay. And now if I run it, it still starts out pointing down into the right. So it's still not going to, we're not going to be able to test it for the top wall yet without making a few other changes. But it should bounce off of the bottom wall this time. Okay. We're getting there one step at a time. Okay. Now, did it go off the right side? Okay, if it went off the right side, how do we know? We know if the ball rectangle dot right is greater than or equal to screen dot right. And if it is, then we need to player 1 score gets one more point. And we want to pause the game. We're going to pause the game by changing state. So game state equals game states dot paused. And did it go off the left side? And we do basically the same thing on the left side. If ball rectangle dot left is less than screen, whoops, less than screen dot left, then player 1, player 2 score plus plus, and game state equals okay. And now when it goes off the right edge, I should get a point for player 1, except I don't have any code in there to draw that, so we're not really going to see anything yet. Yeah. Okay. So, and then let's bounce it off the paddles. Okay, if ball rectangle dot intersects, wrong one, intersects paddle 1 rectangle, then I've got a collision. And so what do I do if I have a collision? I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make sure that I bring the ball back so it's outside of the paddle. And I'm going to reverse the X speed. Okay. So let's reposition the ball rectangle. Dot X is going to be screen dot left plus paddle 1 rectangle dot width. Okay. And then I need to make sure that the ball speed dot X equals minus ball speed dot X. Okay. And then the other side, I'm going to see if it collided with paddle 2. So if the ball rectangle dot intersects paddle 2, rectangle, then two more things to do. Ball rectangle dot X equals screen dot right. We're on the right side now. I got to back up the width of the screen and the width of the ball. So minus screen, not screen, the width of the paddle dot width minus and there's no parenthesis on the end of that. And the other thing I need to do is ball speed dot X equals minus ball speed dot X semicolon. And now we might actually have something here. So let's run it. It's going to start the ball right away because I don't have anything, I don't have an allowance for that, and I missed it. So we only got one ball here, so I'm going to have to go back and run it again. I'll try to be ready this time. Okay. So it's bouncing off the paddles. Okay. And okay, we didn't do splash screen yet. I think did I initialize my game state? Okay, I'm in the splash state. Okay, and I also have not read in the splash screen. So splash texture equals texture 2D and splash. Okay. Now down here at the bottom, so what I need to do is, if I'm in the splash state, draw the splash screen. So if game state equals game states dot splash, then what do I want to do? Well, I just want to draw draw the splash screen. So game state dot, not game state, sprite batch dot draw, and the texture is going to be screen. I keep saying screen. It's going to be splash texture, comma, screen is going to be my, I don't think I made up a rectangle, so we'll just do screen for that, rectangle, and then we'll do color.ydn. Okay, and that's the one I didn't put rectangle on the end of, so screen should work now. And let's try to run it. Now I didn't put any code in there to detect for a change of states, so Super Pong is at least going to be there for a while. Game starts playing automatically, so we got to do a little bit of stuff with our states. Okay, so if I'm in the playing, I've got some other code down here. So if game state equals playing, then what do I want to do? Well, what I want to do is just draw the ball. So and that's only when I'm playing. When I'm in the paused or playing state, or yeah, okay, and so if game state is paused, or I got extra game state in there, let's get rid of that. Now it should be good. Yeah, what I want to do is I want to draw the two paddles. I'm already drawing the ball, and now nothing's going to happen because I am also not changing states here. Okay, let's add some code for game states. Okay, we've got some comments here. Just have to follow what the comments say, and we should be good. So if game state equals game over and pad1 dot buttons dot back equals button state dot pressed, then we want to quit, and so that would be this dot exit. Exit's a method, so don't forget the parentheses. Okay, now if we're in the splash state, game state splash, we get out of there by looking for the start button on pad 1. So if pad1 dot buttons dot start and it's pressed, and on the last tick, previous pad1 dot buttons dot start, if it was equal to released, then it's time for me to change states. So my new game state is, my new game state is going to be playing. Okay, and if game state equals dot paused and and we just want to check the start button again, so I'm going to do this stuff up here. Then go back to the playing state. Okay, and then I can uncomment all of this stuff down here, I think, and so let's uncomment it. And now I think I have a problem here, because if this gets executed, if I'm in the splash state, no, I don't have a problem, because I will go to the playing state when I come out of here, and this is not checking for playing state. But you know, in general, you're probably not going to do two state changes on the same tick of the clock. So usually when you set this up, you're probably going to want to put an else in here just to be on the safe side. Okay, and if you do now, if this condition is true, then we'll do this and we'll skip the rest. If this condition is true, then we need that first line. If that condition is true, then we'll do this and we'll skip what's left. And if this condition is true, then we'll do this, and there's nothing to skip. We're at the end now. Okay. I think I'm reading pad 1. Okay. But you know what? I'm going to I need to read pad 1 before I do this stuff. And rather than read it twice, okay, I'm going to take both of these and move them down here. And this doesn't need to be there anymore. Okay, now let's take a look at what I've got. So I read them both here, and again, this is the one thing that have to be changed to make it work if you had two game pads. And now let's try to run it, and we should be getting our state changes here if I got everything done correctly. So we should get a splash screen at the beginning. And I'm going to push the start button now. Okay. And now we can control the paddles. Okay. So that seems to be working. And we need to update the score if we're in the playing state. So let's go down here and not update it, but display it. So if we're in paused or playing, in addition to this, we will, these didn't get formatted right, so we're going to tab those over. And what we will do here is we will use draw string. Whoops, sprite batch dot draw string. And the string I want to draw is actually I'm just going to simplify right now and just put the number there. So it will be, well, actually, I need my font, and then I need the string, and the string is just going to be player 1 score converted to a string. That's a method, so you need the parentheses. And player 1 score vector is going to be my position, and color dot white, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing here, except it's going to be player 2, and so I need to put player 2 score there, and I use player 2 score vector to do it. Okay, and so now I should be seeing my scores, and we're only going to get one score here, but we'll see what happens. And value cannot be null, so I did not read the sprite font in. That's what my problem is. probably should have just done all of that load content at one time, and actually that's what I was trying to do, but I just happened to forget about the font. So font equals content dot load sprite font. Okay, and now let's give it a try. Okay, push on start now. And player 2 gets a point, and if I stop it and try to run it again here, this time we'll let player 1 score. And we get a point over here for him. Okay. Looks like our paddle's going to cover up the point. That's kind of a minor detail though. Okay, now we've done most of it, but we haven't done what needs to be done if he scores, when somebody scores a point. Okay, so we go to the pause state. If we're in the pause state though, then we need to wait for somebody to start up again. And I did not specify originally that there would be 2 pause states, but there really ought to be. There should be a pause state after player 1 scores, and there ought to be a pause state after player 2 scores. So let's actually go up here and do that. Paused, player 1 scored, and we'll just change that, the occurrences down there, and then we're going to add a new one. Player 2 scored. Okay, and so now when we're updating the ball and we see if the ball went off the screen, okay, if it went off the right side, there's a point for player 1, and the game state is going to be player 1 scored, and down here if it's going to be player 2 scored. Okay, and the only reason we know that is because that tells us whose controller we have to look at next in order to figure out if it's time to serve. We're not going to let the receiver decide when to serve. It's going to be the server is the one that's going to decide when to serve. So now here, so if it's player 1 scored and player 1 pushes start, then we want to go to the playing state. Okay, else if, and this is going to be, actually all this is going to be exactly the same, except for it's going to be for player 2. So let's just do a Control V and copy that in there, paste that in there. And so if I'm in pause because player 2 scored, then I'm going to go to pad 2. And I missed one here. I got to check the start button on pad 2 to see if it's time to start up again. Then I go to the playing state. Okay. Now, when a ball goes off the screen, I am going to go to the pause state, and I'm not going to draw the ball. I'm not going to draw the ball if I'm in the playing state here. Okay. So it doesn't really matter where I put the ball, although we can have some problems here. If you try to hide it off the left or right edge of the screen, then when we get to this point here where we want to see if it went off the edge of the screen, it's going to give us a point, and it's going to do that like 60 times a second, and that's definitely not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to reposition the ball in the middle of the screen whenever somebody scores a point. So here's where somebody scores a point, and actually, I've already written that code. I don't need to write it again. So where do I position the ball in the middle of the screen? It is these 2 instructions right here. I'm going to do a Control C, copy them, and I think it went too far. So right here, put the ball back in the middle, and right here, put the ball back in the middle, and wait for somebody to press the button. And I'm going to have a problem here with only having one game controller. So we're just going to have to do this from player one standpoint and let him score the points, and then see what happens. So here we go, and yeah, great. I didn't let player one score. So just a little eye-hand coordination problem there. So let's start it, and okay, now player one scores, and I'm going to push the button for player one, and he serves. And okay, it looks like that's working. And getting close. We also need to check, when somebody scores a point. Okay, so right here, if somebody scored a point, then we want to go to, and they've scored enough to win the game, then what we want to do is we want to go to the game over state. So if player one score is equal to, and just to be on the safe side here, we'll do greater than equal to points to win, then game state, darn it, I want the variable, not the type. Game state equals dot game over. Okay, and this stuff doesn't really matter then. And then I want to do the same thing down here, and I want to see if player 2 scored, and his points are now more than equal to the points you need to win. Then the game also is over. And just be careful here. This if statement must go after this one, because otherwise, if I put this above it, then I'm going to go to game over state, and then right after I'm going to execute this line again. I'm going right back to the pause player one scored state, and that's definitely not what I want. Okay, so now let's try to run this, and I'm going to have to try and have player one score all the time, which shouldn't be too hard. I'll just miss on the player two side all the time. Okay, I'm going to start now. Okay, now I'm going to serve it again. Oh, great. And again, and again, and now we're in the game over state. I'm not doing anything in the game over state yet, and I'm probably not going to, at least not in this video. And is there anything else we need to do? We could put some color in. We can, and if we do, we could probably change the vector on player one so the paddle and the score don't overlap. But those are all relatively minor things. So we've pretty much got a working version of the game here with state changes and scoring points and stopping when we've scored enough points. And so I think we'll stop the video right here.